welcome to Inkquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. Today's dead fountain pen on the slab ready for resurrection is this circa 1969 to 1974-75 Parker 51 Aerometric in black and gold. It's a lovely fountain pen. This is the first late model Parker 51 I've owned, and it has some interesting features. I've used the website Richard Pens from Richard Binder and the Tony Frischier website parkerpens.net to help me identify the date of this pen, because there are no dates on the outside of the pen. We'll see about the nib soon. But this pen has 51 engraved on both sides of the cap, which happened in the late 60s. And then it has the Parker Aero Halo logo above where it says 1/10 12K GF cap, made in the USA. These late model Parker 51s were made right into the 80s after they stopped production in the USA. They were made in the UK and Canada well into the 80s. Let's take a look at this very interesting Aerometric Parker 51 to see what it needs to come back to the land of the living. It's actually not that dead, this pen. The top finial is nice and shiny pearlescent, and there's a difference with how that top finial jewel is held in as well in the mechanics of this pen, which also helps date it. And the clip looks slightly different gold than the cap. Now, the cap tells us that it's 1/10 12 karat gold filled, but I don't trust that clip to be gold filled. It looks plated to me. So when I go polishing this or buffing it, I'm going to be very careful because that plating might come off. But the clip is in really good shape, so it shouldn't need any buffing. Just a slight rub down with a jeweler's polishing cloth, perhaps. The gold filled cap has these bands of lines. It looks like 7 vertical lines in 8 courses. 8 courses of 7 engraved lines. And those engravings on those caps changed over the years as well, so that might be another method of dating this pen. On the front of the cap it says Parker, and on the back, as I showed you, the logo, the gold content, gold filled cap, and made in the USA. The barrel has some scuffs and scratches on it. These later Parker 51s didn't have as solid plastic in them as earlier ones did. This is a softer plastic, so you have to be careful when you're buffing it because it will melt. I'll be careful when I'm sanding it as well. And the bottom finial is conical with a hole in it. Of course, that's a breather hole to equalize the pressure because this is an aerometric filler. We pull off the cap and we see a very small ring. It can't be called a clutch ring anymore because the clutch mechanism is different. This cap has a finger clutch mechanism that grabs onto the section rather than clutches into the clutch ring. And you can see that the hooded section is slightly deformed. It looks like it goes thin and then thick and then thin. And that is the effect of years and years of those fingers grabbing on to that section, deforming the plastic. And we have a gold, what looks like a medium nib on here, but we'll find out. And ebonite feed. Let's take the barrel off and we see the aerometric filler. The sack looks black. I'm wondering whether they, in the late 60s, early 70s, actually used black vinyl sacks on these. The earlier ones were clear and they went black anyway because of the ink. But they might have just made them completely black. I'm going to take that out, clean it out, and see. And on here it says, to fill, press firmly 4 times, holding pen point down, wipe point with soft tissue, use Parker ink. The Parker Pen Company, made in the USA. You don't have to use Parker ink if you don't want to. Because of the large ink collector in here and how easily they get clogged, I would recommend not using any shimmering or sheening inks in this pen. Because this is a late model Parker 51, it doesn't fit any of the brass converters that I have to convert this into a cartridge converter fountain pen, so it's going to stay as an aerometric. But I am going to take it apart. I'm going to take that sack protector sleeve off of there, see if I can polish that up, take the sack out and see whether it needs to be replaced. And we're going to remove the hood, clean out the collector, pull that nib and see if there's a date code on there so we can tell what year it is. But the first thing I'm going to do is put this whole kit and caboodle, all these parts in the pen flush ultrasonic bath. My pen flush is homemade and is made of 9 parts of distilled water and 1 part ammonia. We'll put that in for 2-3 minutes and clean out some of the old ink, if there is any in this pen. Then we'll come back and see how we can get it apart. And we're back from the bath. There was no ink, just a tiny residual amount of ink came out of the nib, but no ink to speak of in either the section or the cap. And now I'm going to apply a slight bit of heat here to see whether I can get that hood off. First, I should check to see whether it comes off by itself. Use some gripper material here. Oh, it's budging. There we go. There's the hood. There's our ink collector. I think at this point they were black. Earlier ones were kind of a milky clear color, and they turned black with the ink. But when you clean them out, they went kind of clear. This looks like it's made of black plastic. And we'll have to pull that nib off. There's the decorative ring, no longer a clutch ring. See if we can twist this collector off. There we go. You see there's some black ink in there. And where's the breather tube? Oh, it's come off inside. There it is. Ah, and it's a small plastic tube. A lot shorter than the earlier ones. The earlier ones were at least that long. They went all the way to the bottom of the sack, and they were made of silver sometimes, or metal, and got corroded. So later ones were these plastic tubes, and that should fit right back inside there. Well, let's push the section out. So the breather tube goes into the back of the feed. The feed looks okay. A couple of nicks on it. Let's get that nib out of there. There we go. And let me see. Yeah, it just says Parker made in the USA on the bottom of that nib. No gold content indication at all, but that's gold. There's no question in my mind that that's 14 karat gold. So whenever I have small parts, I like to put them into a small container so I don't lose them all. I'm going to take this part here and put it in the ultrasonic bath for quite a while, and then buff it up with a toothbrush and see whether I can get all that old ink out of there. Everything else is pretty clean. Now let's see if we can get this apart. Since the section came off, this is only press fit on here, this sack protector. So I hold on to the threaded part. It's turning. Yep, there we go. And it does look translucent, so maybe they are supposed to be transparent, but it's been stained with years of ink. Yeah, so I do have a replacement Aerometric vinyl sack for these pens, but I'm not sure that it's needed, and I'm not sure that I need to take this off of here at all. Just because it's stained doesn't mean it's not going to last for another 100 years. These vinyl sacks are really, really durable compared to latex, which atrophies and dries out and crumbles. So this was the huge innovation that Parker made with the Aerometric filler. They made the sacks out of vinyl, which was a new material, and the only thing that might make them need to be replaced is if they're pumped so often that maybe there is a cut in there and it doesn't take ink anymore, or it's perforated in some way, or so crudded up with ink that it can't be used. And I'll see whether I can get some of that staining out by soaking it, and maybe it'll go back a little bit clear again. It isn't necessary though. As long as it fills, that's all we need. No one looks at that anyway. And this sack protector looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'll polish this up with my buffer, get all that scuffing out. But the first thing I want to do while this is soaking in the bath is polish up that 14 karat gold nib and see what it looks like. So we'll put it over here on this side of the screen first and show all of its wear. And then I'll put it over here on this side of the screen once it's polished, and we'll see the difference. And there's the nib all shined up. 14 karat gold, as I suspected. I think only the Parker 51 Special had a steel nib. All the others had gold nibs. Isn't that beautiful? Now let's look at this cap. I want to show how you take off the clip on these late model Parker 51s. When they changed the jewel, this is a plastic jewel that screws into a brass nut, which they had done before, even back as far as the Vacuumatic. But inside, you might be able to see there, if I get the light just right, there is a slotted screw. In order to unscrew that, you need to put a screwdriver down in there, engage with that slot, but if you notice there's a post in the center of it. So you can't really get into that slot unless you have a special tool. Well, I made a special tool out of my slot screwdriver. I ground it down so it was thin enough and then ground a little groove in the center to drop over top of that post. And so you put this inside the cap and engage with that screw, and you get some gripper material on the top and unscrew the top finial. You see it's come loose, so I can do that the rest of the way with my gripper. A little tiny part we don't want to lose. There's the little plastic jewel. Put that in our tray of treasures. And there's the brass nut that engages with that steel nut on the bottom. So here we have to do this operation again. Engage that slot screw there and get another screwdriver to engage with this end and unscrew the brass nut. That will release the clip. There we go. So there's the clip, which I suspect, as I mentioned, is only plated gold. The brass nut, and we can push out the cap seal unit down through the cap, and the cap seal and the clutch fingers which grab on to the section are right there. So you can take this apart if you like to clean all these parts, and we'll put all these parts back in our treasure box. And now I have the gold-filled cap all by itself, and I can polish that with some metal polish, my polishing buffer, and a jeweler's cloth to get out all that old abrasion. So again, we'll put the cap before on this side so you can see it the way it looked before, and we'll put what it looks like after polishing over here. And there's the cap all polished up. There's still a bit of a ding where the clip was on it, but I can't even find it now. Yeah, I can't find it. It's in here somewhere. If I can't find it, it means it's almost invisible. Beautiful. Look at that. I like gold filled. Comes up beautifully.
I love gold!
So let's see about putting this cap back together again. I just polished up the clip with a polishing cloth. That's all. I didn't buffer it at all. It might actually be gold electroplate. I'm not sure. But it certainly isn't gold filled. But we have to put the cap sealer together with the cap clutch. It slides all the way down there like that. And then we slide that whole thing into the cap. Push it down to the top. Get out our specialty tool. That's sometimes what people call me, the special tool. Because I'm special and I'm a tool.
I'm gonna go use a miter to jerry-rig a shim jam strap hinge quarter-round soffit 2x6 dowel cherry picker flim flam.
Then we put the clip in place, which there's a small notch right at the top of the cap. That little tab right there that the clip sits on top of. There we go. And then we put our brass nut to hold the clip in place. It's hard to do over the camera. You have to do it off camera here to get it lined up to get that thread started. There we go. Now that I got it started, I got the screwdriver under the underside and a screwdriver on the top, and we tighten that cap seal down tight. There we go. And then we can put our top jewel back in to that threaded nut. And then we can use a rubber mat or a rubber band to tighten that jewel down. Get all my finger marks off that cap with a jeweler's polishing cloth, and there's our cap back together again. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, how that gold is mismatched. So the clip doesn't match the gold of the cap itself. Probably one of the many cost savings they tried to institute when the Parker Pen Company was starting to undergo some difficult times in the mid-70s into the 80s. Now that our cap is done, we can put our sack protector back on. I didn't get any of the staining out. I used a little bit of bleach on that just to see if it would lighten up, but I don't want to destroy it. So I rinsed it and sat it in the pen flush for quite a while. And there's nothing wrong with this vinyl sack. It'll last another 100 years. Parker called these Ply-Glass, and it's actually made of PVC, polyvinyl chloride, or vinyl. So it lasts a long, long time. The one thing that melts vinyl is acetone or nail polish remover, so don't get that next to this. And I polished up the sack protector, the chrome, so it's nice and shiny. And we're just going to press fit that back on there to that nipple, and the filling unit is ready to go. I soaked and soaked and soaked. It is black plastic. I got as much of that old stained ink out of there as I could. So let's put this hole back together again. Put the decorative ring on first, and then we're going to put the nib and the feed and the breather tube back in the collector. But I said earlier that that was a ebonite feed. It's not. It's plastic. So it's another cost saving that they made in the 60s and 70s. They changed the feed from ebonite to plastic. So we'll put that breather tube back in like that. Line it up with the nib. So it's just like that. Put it back into the ink collector and push it in deep. It only goes in so far and stops. I'm just going to put that feed in first. The bottom side right at that large channel. Put it in as far as it'll go. And then push the nib over top so that it lines up perfectly. Give it a little bit of a polish. And we put that back with a slight twist into the unit. But I do want to polish up the barrel and the hood. And I don't want those edges to get rounded. So I do want to have the filling unit inside the barrel. But I don't want to have the nib there. So I'm just going to pull that nib unit out again. Easy enough to install it later. There we go. And then I'm going to put the hood back down, and we have a solid unit to polish up. I'll go down through the micromesh from 1500 grit to 12,000 grit, and then use some polishing compound to polish it up. I'm going to be very careful with my buffing wheel because the buffing wheel creates heat, and this is soft plastic now. So I'm going to just use the low speed on the buffer. And before I polish the pen, let's take a look at it up here. There are a number of abrasions. There's quite a nice scratch right there, and a line from that clutch in the cap, a ring from the top of the cap, and some abrasions right there. So we'll see what we can do to get those out. This is what it looks like beforehand. And here's the barrel all polished up. Got all those gouges and scratches out of it, and it's looking very, very nice. Still has that peculiar little wow right there in the hood, but unless you look for it, you don't see it. Put it together with the cap, and there we go. One beautiful looking Parker 51 from the late 60s, early 70s. Let's put the nib and feed back in the pen, and then we'll fill this pen with ink, and we'll give it a writing test. We're going to put the breather tube back in the plastic feed. I never knew about that plastic feed on these 51s. Learn something new every day. And then I'm going to put the feed with the bottom side up on that large channel and push it in as far as it will go. And then we'll take the nib, line it up, and push it in all the way. And we get my finger marks off of it. And now we need to put the hood back on. First of all, we'll see where it goes to. And it's the inside of that section is twisting the feed around. So I think I'm going to leave the nib out and fit it from the front, because when the nib and feed are together, turning the nib and feed around as I turn the section, we'll do the line up first. So this is where it's supposed to be, right there. I'm going to mark that with my thumb and turn the whole unit around. And there's a small channel, ink channel right there that I ran my X-Acto blade through just to make sure it was clear. That's an important channel for ink flow. Now let's try it again. We lined up, and it looks pretty close. We'll put the nib in from the front. There, until it doesn't move anymore. And it's perfect. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to fill this pen up with ink. We're going to test write with it, see whether it writes okay. And then once everything's okay, I'm going to add some silicone grease to those threads right there to make sure there's no ink seepage. If it seeps ink even with silicone grease, I might have to shellac that section down. Okay, so we get out my scale, measure the pen empty. It measures 7.9 grams. Pressed hair. We're going to grab some Watermans, and it says pump 4 times. We'll just pump until there's no more bubbles. Put the nib and section into the ink and give it 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't hear any more bubbles. And let's see how that does. 1.2 milliliters of ink. That's not bad at all. And we'll put the pen back together again and get out some writing materials and give it a test. And here we are with, I'm going to call this a 1970. 1970s Parker 51 Aerometric, and it has a 14 karat gold. I'm going to call this a medium nib. I have to measure this out, but it feels like a medium line to me. Got my pad from Dominant Industries, and let's check out this line. It's looking like a 0.5 to 0.6 millimeter line, and it's extremely smooth. Let's check the wetness here, and it's very dry, as I expect. For most Parker 51s I've tried, have been fairly dry. Let's see if there's any bounce to this nib. It's fairly stiff. I'm going to push it a little bit, see whether that makes it a little bit wetter. It does. Oh, this is a nice writer. Nothing. I've done nothing to this nib at all. Nothing at all. So right out of the box, right out of the antique bin, that nib is perfect. And I'll come back with my thoughts on this resurrection. So what are my thoughts about this resurrection? To paraphrase Charles Dickens, it was the best of resurrections, it was the worst of resurrections. Well, not really. It was a fairly easy resurrection because there wasn't a lot wrong with this pen. What was difficult was figuring out the various parts of a late model Parker 51 and what those parts were made of, because you don't want to apply heat or abrasives to materials that you might not be aware of what they are. The plastic on these late model Parker 51s is definitely softer, and I had to have a lighter touch when I was sanding with micromesh because I could feel the difference in the softness of the plastic. I also learned a lot about cap construction for late model Parker 51s, with the cap seal having a slot screw fastener on the inside and a brass slot screw fastener on the top, and the tiny plastic pearlescent jewel that fit into the brass nut. So making new tools to be able to do that, I know that I can tackle a late model Parker 51 cap disassembly in the future. And it's kind of fun to make tools for things. I also learned that the clip on these late model pens is different than the cap. So the cap says 12 karat gold filled, but it does mention cap, not the clip. So you have to be careful not to over polish that clip or the plating will come off. And I also learned that the feed I just assumed was ebonite, because they're all ebonite with 14 karat gold Parker 51 nibs. Well, apparently not. Starting in the late 60s, they started making the feeds out of plastic. They removed the metal Aerometric breather tube and used a smaller plastic tube. So again, soft plastic behaves differently when you're polishing it than ebonite does. But it was the same wonderful 14 karat gold nib, and this one wrote beautifully, and I didn't have to do any adjustments to it. I also learned that the clutch ring isn't a clutch ring anymore in these late model P51s. That is just a decorative band, because that small finger clutch grabs onto the section rather than onto the clutch ring, as in earlier models. But also the combination of that pressure on the section and the softer plastic means that the hoods started to deform over time. And because Parker stopped putting date codes on things, it made it difficult to figure out what date this pen was made. I narrowed it down to between 1969 and 1972, because in 1969 they started putting the 51 on the shoulders of the cap, and in 1972 they turned the top jewel into a solid black plastic jewel instead of these pearlescent ones. So that means that this pen was made between 1969 and 1972. So I'm just going to call it a 1970. Also, these Ply-Glass sacks that Parker used from 1949 through, the 1980 in some UK and Canadian plants show that they can last forever. They're made of PVC vinyl, and they're almost indestructible. Yes, they do get stained with ink, and it doesn't look bad. One problem with a non-translucent sack is that you don't see the ink levels in there, but they're fairly easy to fill. Overall, the pen is beautifully balanced like the classic Parker 51, and this one just writes like a champ. And there you go. One beautiful Parker 51 from 1970. Relatively recently, Peyton Street Pens sold a 1973 black jewel chrome cap version of this pen for $150 US. This is a gold-filled cap with the pearlescent jewel, and I'm going to sell this one for $125 US. If you're interested in purchasing this pen, just drop me an email at inkquiringminds@gmail.com with your name and your address, and I'll get you a shipping quote. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section, and you'll get cool emojis, badges, sneak peek unboxing videos, as well as instant access to my videos the moment I post them. And that just leaves it for me to say, thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.